Hey everyone, it's Craig. Want to take a moment out before the show to tell you about our Patreon offerings. Yes, that's right, patreon.com/Katya and Craig. That's the place to go if you want to join Hot Dog Club and gain access to hours and hours and hours and hours of exclusive content. For $5 a month, you get bonus episodes. A bonus episode you might be familiar with is the Thunderbuns episode. That's one of the examples we wanted to put out into the world of some of the magic you can get only on Patreon. For $7 a month, you get the bonus episodes as well as all of the listener questions episodes. And for $10 a month, for $10 a month, you get the bonus episodes, you get the listener questions episodes, and you get full access to all of our movie clubs. That's right, Movie Club, in which we all watch a movie together. I mean, not necessarily in the same room, but spiritually and emotionally together, followed by a full breakdown of the film. And sometimes the episodes are actually longer than the films themselves. Let's see, on Movie Club we've done Suspiria, Steel Magnolias, Legend, John Waters' Hairspray, and coming soon a very, very extended movie club all about Rocky Horror Picture Show, featuring Cherry and Sophie and Cherry's partner Dozer, who amazingly had not only not seen the film before, had never heard of it, so we got to experience it with a true Rocky virgin. We'd love it if you subscribe on iTunes and leave a review for us, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Katya and Craig, which is spelled @Katya and Craig. Katya, of course, is on tour with Help Me I'm Dying, and a bunch of new dates have been added, so go to Katya Live and check that out. And now that we're done with all of that, it's time to listen to my chat with James St. James, featuring guest co-host Deven Green.
A Russian ballerina, stomping on a bureaucrat, a perky suburban housewife who just got into scat. It's whimsically volatile.
Welcome. Hello, darling.
Yes, darling. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And Devin, I'm keeping your mic off for a little while, just to see.
I think that would be a terrible mistake.
I think ladies love a challenge, right? We always hear that.
Sometimes I'll start with a thought and then I'll sort of peter out halfway through, and I get very Trumpian like that.
Well, that's kind of our show, so that's perfect. We're here with James St. James and Deven Green.
Oh my God.
It's very exciting, and we have a long, rich history.
Indeed. You were just talking a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think we've known each other for about over 10 years, I think.
Oh, easily. And he and Michelle Visage gave me the best YouTuber award at the Wowie Awards. It was one of the very first ones.
It was a landslide. It was an avalanche of support for you there. We love you. We love you. And Michelle, today we're giving our shout out to Michelle.
That's right.
Because
she had her implants removed. They're toxic, and what a brave move for a young girl to go, really for her to do that at this point. I admire her so much. She's my friend, and
she's always been very open about having them, about about how she wanted them so much.
Yes.
And now when she realized that it is toxic and it was making her sick, she just did the logical thing, and I think she's a good role model. She realized,
And also being very open about that is terrific for anyone who might be struggling with something like that.
Exactly.
And also, someone you've known for 10 years, that means that you consider them family, right?
Well, yeah, I've always said that if I've known you for 10 years, I want everybody to call. I'm James to everybody, unless you're family or you've known me for 10 years, and then you can call me Jimmy. You can call me Jim. You can call me Hey stupid.
We actually have one person in common who we both lost last year, Mr. Saban. And he was just an icon.
Stephen Saban used to write for Details, and then he was working at World of Wonder for many years, and he is somebody who when I moved to New York and I was 17 years old, he was my icon. I used to just follow him around. I chased him. He had a column in Details, and I would come up to him and I'd be like, write about me. And I went over the course of the years from being a fan to being a friend to being a best friend to then being a coworker. And so it's sort of like I knew him from every point of view. I knew for over the course of 30 years. And then losing him last year was just brutal.
He really was a champion of mine, and he would write up anytime I did a voiceover.
Yeah.
And I was reticent to meet him in person, so I just would send pizza pies to World of Wonder.
You did, yes.
I didn't know how else to thank him, and I just
what
hope
could be better, really, honestly.
And then finally, after like 2 years, I finally delivered one. I hand delivered it. I was really so thankful to him. He was really a champion. We were also in Marjorie's film, Marjorie Conrad, Chemical Cut, where he played her father, and he was just incredible.
He's somebody who had a real love of the English language. He was a writer.
Yes.
And he and I, when we worked together, God bless him, if you're listening, Stephen, I'm so sorry, but we would go to the mat. We would argue over a dangling participle. We would argue over
an Oxford comma.
An Oxford comma. I mean, literally, we would scream and shout he wouldn't speak to me for days because I would put LOL on something, and that was just
not having it.
No, he was a true purist when it comes to writing. He was an old style journalist, and he really, like I said, he was a mentor of mine for many years, and any skill that I have is because of him.
His stories, I feel, were somewhat lost because he would relay them to us in person. But I don't know if they were ever put down. He had so many books and so many insights into the dark reaches and the microcosms, all these subsects,
the netherworlds of
it's funny.
He traversed the whole thing, though.
He was in many different scenes over the course of his life. He also is. I've always was fascinated because he was a teen and in his 20s and the 60s. He was in his 30s and the 70s. He was in his 40s and the 80s. He managed to do those decades just right, and he was like in the epicenter of the disco, of the punk, of 80s, of 60s, and he just had these stories. And he wrote for Details magazine, which I don't know if people realize that Details, before it was a men's fashion magazine in the 80s, it was nightlife and art and fashion, and it was like below 14th Street in New York, and he was Mr. New York, and he was just a fascinating person to know, and so I miss him. I miss him every day.
Heartbreaking.
And just recently, we were doing this show on at World of Wonder called Reading Queens with psychic Shar Margolis. Have you heard about this?
Here's the thing. I have known you for over 10 years, and I have never seen anything humanize you as much as this reading in my entire life.
Really?
You were spooked. You were woke. I watched the whole thing. I watched that part twice because guess who showed up?
Okay, so she's saying, she says, I see someone with an S. Do you have anybody with an S who just recently passed away? And I'm like, yes, it's Stephen Saban. She's a psychic. And I said, Stephen. She said, he just recently passed over. And I said, yes. And she said, we had a falling out beforehand, and I didn't get a chance to see him before he passed, and I was very upset about that, and I wasn't able to go to his memorial in New York, and I really felt bad about it. And she said, just without knowing any of that, she said he wants you to know. He knows you weren't there, and he loves you, and it's not a problem, and to let it go. And I said, oh my God! And she said, he's here, and he wants you to know that. And the minute she said that, the lights go out. The lights popped and bright, like the light bulb broke. I was just dying. I was like, oh my God, Stephen, I'm so glad you're okay with it. It was just
are. I'll be honest. You're very clear on who you are, James, but I had never seen you so bewildered. You can't hide it. You like your true essence came out in that moment. I was like the number one. Your reading was Shar. It freaked me out.
Well, I went into it because I don't know.
Do you even believe in?
I don't.
I thought you were sort of reticent. I don't know.
I don't know if I believe or if I don't. I mean, I've had a lot of weird things happen in my life. I've had a lot of spooky, weird. I had someone come in and had sage my apartment recently because I thought there was a poltergeist. There was. I was sleeping and a picture fell and hit me on the head, bunked me on the head. I got locked in my bathroom for about 4 hours. The doorknob just wouldn't go, and I was like trapped in the bathroom. I was calling out into the alley behind me. It was midnight on a Friday, so there was not going to be anybody in the alley.
Right.
Well, I don't know, but
or no one helpful maybe.
But finally, they had to call the fire department, and they had to break down the door, and they had to climb in through a window and break down. It was just crazy. So I kept thinking, like, there's all these weird things happening in my apartment, and someone came over and they said, we need to sage this place.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't know if there's an afterlife. I don't know if there are ghosts or spirits, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
You are a magnet.
Now, did anything change after the saging?
Well, for a while, but now all of a sudden there's a weird spot in the apartment where every time I walk past it, I have this like dark feeling and I say, oh, when is it going to get better? And then I walk past and I'm like, fine again. And I keep thinking maybe like something happened right there.
Sure.
Maybe like there was like a suicide but something in this one spot. And I say the same thing. Oh, this
residual. Just sitting right there.
There's some sort of energy or something. So.
I've thought about putting a nice credenza there or something.
Right.
Do you have a guide, like a spirit animal? I know you have a...
Well, it's weird that you say that because do you know about Harvey? Have I ever told you about Harvey?
No.
Well, I have this giant 7-foot paper mache rabbit, okay, that I found in a thrift store, in like an antique store in New York about 35 years ago, and it was the March hare from Mama Leone's. Okay, it was in the window at Mama Leone's, and it has this evil look on its face, and it looks, I always say that he's been smoking crack or something, and I sometimes have to chain him up there because I think he wanders around the apartment when I'm not there, but there's just something about his eyes. Every once in a while, I'll look over at him, and I'll just see that there's someone in this rabbit staring back at me, and I always think that maybe he protects me, maybe he is my spirit, and maybe because I have lugged him from apartment to apartment to apartment, from New York to Miami to LA to, I mean, like 20 different apartments, and he falls, but like I can't let go of this guy, and so I think that maybe that he's my spirit animal, even if he's...
I thought your spirit animal was Dame Edith Sitwell.
Oh yeah, I love me some Dame Edith Sitwell. Yeah, she's bless her heart.
Bless her heart. Do you have a spirit animal, Craig?
I'm not sure actually. Who would you think would be my spirit animal?
A roast beef.
Yeah, sure.
An Arby's roast beef sandwich.
Absolutely. Arby's perfect. That's it exactly.
I would have a mannequin bird because that's the only bird with a solid bone.
Well, what about just a mannequin? Yeah, that's not a... We were talking earlier about, I reread your book, and...
Which one?
Darling, which book? Which one?
And you have a third coming. I know. We're gonna...
It's not
the trilogy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that really struck me is your dedication to your friend family. Because we mentioned earlier the thing about after 10 years, you consider friends family, and your unconditional love for the folks in your life. It seemed like a value that goes through your entire story.
Well, it is. It's hard to talk about this, but my grandfather was sort of a bad guy. He was
nefarious, truculent, insouciance.
Was this read something, a book that you had being written about Killer Grandpa?
Yeah.
Yes.
And he was a corrupt sheriff back in the Old South, and there was a lot of incidents that happened. And to me, growing up, he was like Colonel Sanders. He was like God. He just had a white beard and white hair, and I just loved him to death.
Sure.
And I didn't know any of these things about him until I was an adult. And the crux of the book is, am I allowed to love the memories that I have of him, even when I know that the person isn't that? But,
sure.
And so it's the same thing with Disco Bloodbath, with Party Monster. It's, am I allowed to, the good times that I had, am I allowed to keep those good times, even when everything went bad and everything went sour?
Can they be two separate compartments?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I love my romanticized history with them, which
and
then the sort of the factual,
reality.
Because it wasn't, you had a relationship this way, and the relationship that they had with others was so dark and awful. How do you reconcile?
Sure.
And the thing with like Michael is that Michael Alig, I had accepted who he was from the beginning, from the outset.
Sure.
I knew that he was a monster, and I still chose to let him into my life, and I still chose to be a part of that scene, knowing full well what he was capable of.
Yeah.
So when he actually did something monstrous, I couldn't jump back and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
If I accepted him before, I have to accept him after. And that's what people don't really understand. And it's like with your family, you don't have to approve of them.
Sure.
You don't have to like what they do, but they're a part of who you are, and you stand by them without
condoning necessarily behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Anyone who is in my life will remain in my life for always, because you've been
forever
a part.
Friends. You know, you're part of my fabric. You're part of my fabric.
Sure. Yeah.
You may be a loose thread at sometimes a little tighter, but it's the people around you that make you whole, you know, because we can't live in isolation, obviously.
And I would not be the person I am.
Correct.
I mean, it's all learning experiences along the way. And I like to think that is all those bad things were happening, I became a better person, and I became a more, woke.
Yeah, but not everybody could have gone. You had several choices to make to get to where you are today.
Yeah.
To be
certainly.
an articulate, flourishing, robust life that you have, because it could easily, that's you, the 1% difference, James, you could have had a much...
Well, at any given point, it seems like, just today I could, fall off the wagon and you'd never see me again. I mean, like, every minute is a choice, and every minute you have to always constantly strive to make the right choice.
And so when you say fall off the wagon, so are you on a wagon?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. I can go to a bar, a club, and I can have 2 drinks, and then I can go home, and then I go home, and I'm fine. If I have 3 drinks, all of a sudden the club kid comes out in me, and it's 3 days later, and I'm in Tijuana, and
an extra tattoo.
And so I don't go out like I used to, and that's a choice too, because I work, and I try and be at work by 9 every day, and we're 9 till 6. And the last thing I want to do when I go home is, get dressed up and go out. So it's just something that I'm in my 50s now, and it's just there's not as much out there for me, and if I go out, sometimes there is temptation, and so I prefer not to put myself in the way of temptation anymore.
Now, what's your relationship with ketamine? Now, we know what it was before.
It does a lot of damage to your mind. I didn't realize how much 15 years of ketamine would do. Like I was telling you before, that like sometimes I will just trail off, and like I'll just find myself like just staring it out the window or something like that. And I wonder if at some point there will be like a dementia or something, that I'll go into that long K-hole of the evening and never come out but
Or as you said in one interview, K-land. It's not even a hole.
No, it is. It's just it is a whole la la land. But it it screws with your bladder is one thing that it does.
Did you ever have any effects from that?
Well,
do you have an irrigation issue?
but I don't know if that's now that it's just my age and I'm getting a prostate the size of a cantaloupe or something.
Hard to parse out sometimes.
Which is the drugs and which is age at this point. So
I can check your prostate.
Oh, sure. We'll take a short break. Actually, we'll reset the camera. Yeah. It's a full service facility here. Yeah.
But it's something that the older you get, the less inclined you are to want to go on a 5-day binge anymore, because it even starts happening in your 30s, where if I were to go out and go partying and do coke or K or whatever, like I would need 3 days to recover.
Sure.
Where you used to bounce up the next day and go out and play. When you're 30s, you need 3 days. If I were to do it now, I'm sure I would need 2 weeks before I could get out of bed again. Yeah. So it's just it gets harder and harder to be a bad boy with the older you get.
Sure, and also with ketamine as well. I mean, it's sort of noted in your book, I think at one point when you were having drug dealers living at your house and sort of trading their product for being at your dwelling, 3 vials a day. It kind of blew my mind.
Oh, yeah. It got worse than that. And then I would have like 2 or 3 dealers living in the house. One would be on the couch, one would be in the bedroom with me, so I'd give...
You're a lab rat.
I would put a futon on the floor of the bathroom. room. And I mean, it was, I was
But
terrible.
it's a weird symbiotic relationship because even though this was all normalized,
Yeah.
you actually cared for them here.
And I still do.
Does anybody need snacks? You know?
Well, that's another thing that's a recurring theme in your book. One of the drug dealers, I think, Freeze.
Yeah.
Freeze, who you had terrible dealings with, but then he was really down on his luck, and so you're like, okay, I know that if I hang out with him for an hour or bring him over the house, he's going to be there for a week, but he's not doing so well, and he's part of our family, so he did.
There were a lot of them that were sort of like little lost ducklings that I sort of gathered into my fold, and I would like to think that they love me as much as the memories that I have of me, but I don't know. Some of them I don't think are very. Some of them don't speak with me still. So.
Really breaking off communication with a drug dealer, it's very uncommon. I don't know. Usually people have long and fabulous relationships.
There's certainly no Hallmark card for that.
To the drug dealer thing. Another thing that the book brought up in my mind is what the motivation is for some people to be drug dealers. Obviously, there's the financial gain, but it seemed like, I mean, especially with Mavis and Freeze, they were stars. Yeah,
they were. Yeah,
that was their identity. That's what made them. That was their skill.
That was how they got in for free to clubs. That was how people gave them homage and paid took their pictures and gave them drink tickets and they were invited everywhere and they used their money to go buy fabulous little Versace outfits. And I mean, it was you see this. I go see this in WeHo. I see you see the fabulous drug dealers and who are.
Does anything ever change? No, it's all
la
cyclical.
Plus ça change. Le plus whatever.
C'est comme la même chose.
La même chose. That was it.
There's a scene in the book where you're talking about Freeze sort of conducting like an orchestra with his Coke spoon or whatever because people are just bobbing and weaving.
There was this, good Lord. I don't want to mention names, but I'm going to mention it. Olympia, who, bless her heart, she was out of her mind and she had a tackle box full of drugs, like a fishing tackle box. And she'd say, I'll give you, you'd be like, can I get a bump? She'd be like, yes. And she'd open up the tackle box and then she'd sort of go into a K-hole and you'd be sitting there like fiending for the bump, and then she'd like dig around and then she'd sort of nod off again, and you would be waiting for half an hour just furious with her bump. You couldn't say hurry up because she'd cut you off or she would so
it gives the game away.
Exactly. So you just had to sit there and like you said, you were bobbing and then she'd get it in her hand and then she'd start and you'd be like chasing it around with your nose. Oh God, I do not miss those times.
Well, if we could insert a disclaimer right here, what PSA would you have for the youth?
Buy the drugs outright, get them in your own little hands,
and save time. That's what it's all about.
Don't chase a drug dealer for a bump because they're going to make you jump through hoops to get it. Mm-hmm. Was that
yes, that's exactly what we were looking for. As a deterrent.
We're going to put some motivational music behind that, and I think I have a terrific thing for the kids. Yeah.
I want to see a kitten hanging from a branch going.
Oh, sure. Yeah. With classical music. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's very meaningful.
It's very, very meaningful. Thank you very much. I appreciate you acknowledging that.
You have done so much. You write so much, you still have your finger on the pulse, but doing transformations, you've had Ridge Gallagher to Drag Kings to Matthew Anderson, Billy B being your very first one. Was there any one that actually made you emotional when you saw the transformation? Because transformations don't just happen on the outside. They also affect you on the inside.
There have been a lot of transformations where I don't know what I'm getting into when I go into it, and I don't really know that much about the person. And there's one that was Hank and Henry. Do you know who he is? He's a makeup artist. I think you'll see him on Instagram. Really, really cute, beautiful boy, beautiful soul. He came on and he started telling me his story about how his mother was a meth addict when he was growing up, and at one point she owed money to the dealers, and they came and kidnapped him and held him in a van for like 10 days and beat him. Yeah, just beautiful boy. I believe that his brother is dead, and so he's taken on his brother's name. The Hank and the Henry is part of the brother, and he's telling this story, and I didn't know any of this, and I'm just like tears are coming out of my mind because it was like you think that you're going in for this, fun thing, and and sometimes they get a little dark but you just end up learning about these people on the show, and that's why I love the show so much. I also love you have Billy and Billy B and Matthew and a lot of the the Drag Race girls come on, and we all know them and we know their stories. But sometimes there are people who come on like I don't know if you saw the Hungry one. I don't know if you know.
I do know.
Yeah.
This is you've never seen anything like that. It's like a
Hungry's
Rorschach
amazing.
test, Rorschach on the face,
like an interdimensional bug or something, like an ant
And you even say in that one that you say you don't even know how to define a Hungry's aesthetic, essentially.
There's some people like we're old queens, and mostly I can look at a drag queen and say, well, that's a 1930s, this is a 1960s Avedon shoot, this is like the references and everything like that. There are some people that come on. There's a girl coming on tomorrow, Sad Salvia. Do you know who Sad Salvia is? Sad Salvia is from Wales, and the look is once again it looks like an interdimensional goat monster or something. I enjoy those people who come on and they just open a lot of the kids' minds because a lot of times with Drag Race, God love it, and it's done so much for drag.
Sure.
But there's a sort of a cookie cutter aesthetic. There's a
sometimes hard to tell people apart because they're doing an homage and they think this is how it's supposed to be done.
Yes.
Almost the mainstream within the subculture.
Exactly. That's my favorite part about transformation is being able to show people all the different sides of drag. And,
sure.
and there are people that I love, like on Drag Race, I have Milk and some of the people who have brought in different looks. But a lot of times you get blowbacks from the kids who don't quite understand it yet.
Sure.
But it's an education process. So I always give people a moment of grace when they have these knee-jerk reactions.
Sure.
Be mindful about your words. Your words are powerful and they affect other people. You don't have a mask of anonymity. You're somebody who's affecting somebody else.
That's true.
So I'm going to give you a moment and please reconsider what you are putting out there. So especially with things like Drag Race or when people have, I don't get it, or you don't understand it, or you're fearful, or you don't know what to compare it to. Just take it for what it is.
Yeah, let it wash over you and then figure it out later.
The thing that drives me crazy is that if you aren't wearing nails, it's not drag. That, you cannot tell. Anytime you put on a character, anytime you are changing your look, it's that RuPaulian thing where we are all born naked and the rest is drag, and anything is drag, and it's not up to you to tell me what I'm doing is or isn't drag.
Yeah,
I get what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You get what you're doing.
Exactly.
Craig knows his beeswax.
Yeah, no one has the right to define someone else's.
Exactly.
How did the Transformations show start? You were already working with World of Wonder, but what was the impetus to do it?
I would Google my name. It would just be a picture of me cross-eyed lying in a corner in a K-hole. And I thought, I need to get some better pictures. I need to get Matthew in here. And the only way I was going to do that was if I came up with a show.
On film.
Exactly. So my first people were Billy B, and Squeaky. I knew I was Squeaky, Matthew, and a couple other people like that. And then once we found Ridge...
Ridge Gallagher.
Yeah, amazing. Such a genius. So I have managed now, I have 220 headshots that are each one fabulous.
I was trying to count them. It's like 2004, 2005. You've been your face is a great canvas, and I like that you're always so amenable. You're like, create.
Yeah.
I want you to do what you do.
I have a Charlie Brown face. I just have it's a perfect circle with two eyes, two nose, and a mouth, and that's about
Trixie
it.
described it as a golf ball, I think, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Trixie. But it's true. And so anything can be stamped on this face, and it can go in any direction. And I love that. And the only problem is it's coming up with outfits for each and every single one of them.
You need a sponsor. You need some co-branding is what you need.
Well, we had the Betty Page store downstairs for a while, and for that I was able to run in every single time and grab something. Yeah. But that's gone now. So it's basically just me in my closet every time trying to free. Because with Salvia, she texted me and she said, we need it needs to be all beige and maybe some fur. And I was
Do
like,
you have beige?
I was
in
gonna
your
say,
closet?
No, dude, I have been like,
I don't even have a towel that's beige.
Maybe a taupe, maybe in a pinch,
well,
but
there's maybe, I don't know, maybe there might be some, I don't know. So I'm like literally freaked out.
I have an idea, Craig.
yes, Devin.
Maybe we could put out a little post and say, if you are an up and coming top designer,
Sure.
we can
There we go.
maybe get in touch with
Yeah.
James.
I would
and
love
we'll put a link because I know that a lot of your whimsically volatile podcasters are in the arts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they would
Certainly.
like a little, little bump.
Please help,
Sure.
help me, and
A
we
different
will,
kind of bump, by the way, just to be clear. Sorry to interrupt you.
And they can get in touch with you.
Yes,
and
please. World of Wonder, and we will plaster your image all over and give you all the things in the world. Yeah, definitely.
Websites. They're great. Want one? Get Wix. We're doing it. So the reason it's not up yet, totally down to us. We've been traveling too much. We're all over the place. We're in different parts of the country at the moment. However, what that really means is we're taking extra care to make sure everything on the website is as glorious as we want it to be. We could have had it up yesterday, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, because that's how easy it is to use Wix. Because we don't know coding. I mean, do you know coding? A lot of people don't. And a lot of people are a little intimidated by the fact that they're not tech whizzes. You don't have to be one to use Wix. And using Wix is how you're going to get a fabulous professional website. There's 140 million other people who use Wix for their website, and you can start and publish for free. You choose from over 500 stunning templates or start from scratch, and you can change, customize, or add anything you want. And all sites include built-in SEO tools. Now that's SEO, which stands for Search Engine Optimization, which is very, very helpful, particularly for businesses if you want your website to be found. It's really the most technologically advanced website building platform available. Tools for every kind of business, from e-commerce to music to hotels, events, restaurants, and more. And if you're just making a personal website, well, why not make it look the best you can, right? And also, it's so easy with Wix, why not? There's no HTML or CSS necessary. You can get started now by going to Wix.com, that's Wix.com/podcast, to get 10% off. Again, that's Wix.com/podcast. And soon we'll be sharing our website with you, and we want to see yours that you make with Wix. And how did you originally get involved with World of Wonder?
I knew Randy and Fenton when they were in a band called the Fabulous Pop Tarts back in the 1980s, and they were just god awful. and yet they performed. Every night they were performing at the Cat Club or some club somewhere, and we would have to go and to show them support. So I knew them, and then they sort of fell back a little bit from the scene, and then the next thing we knew, Supermodel came out, and every queen in the world then was like, they're making stars out of drag queens. We got to get in touch with World of Wonders.
Yeah.
So I managed to find them again, and that's when they started doing a documentary about the club kid scene.
Right.
Not knowing that there was a murder, that they didn't know any of that.
Really? Wow.
So they were getting all this footage of everybody. They had Michael at my house. Michael was on camera, and he said, I murdered Angel, and and joking, but he wasn't joking, but he confessed on camera, and they looked at each other and they realized, holy shit, we have something here that's bigger than what we thought.
Right.
We thought we were just doing this funny, this cute little campy club kid documentary, and all of a sudden we've stumbled into this murder.
Yeah.
And so that's when they were in New York, and then they went back to Los Angeles to film it, and I knew I had to get out of Los Angeles. So out of New York. And so I came out to Los Angeles, my sister's out here, and I got back in touch with them again, and we went out to dinner, and that's when we came up with the idea to write the book, and they would help me get the literary agent and everything. So I had known them before, and then when everything went down, I reconnected with them, and I've been sort of with them in some form or another since 96, 97. They do so much LGBTQ programming. They do Big Frida.
Sure.
They do, they also do,
World of Wonder Presents.
Yeah.
We had the Pets for Pets.
Yes, I love that.
So good.
They do. They're very good about including everybody,
Yes.
and they have a genuine passion and a genuine love. And then they do their bigger projects like the Mapplethorpe documentary.
The Tammy Faye documentary,
Tammy
which is
Faye.
incredible.
Tammy
Yeah, it's a
Faye.
Tammy Faye. If you haven't seen it out there, watch it after the show. After the show.
Mandatory.
That's one of my
Yeah.
favorites. Oh, they also did Monica in Black and White, right?
Oh,
the Monica
right.
Lewinsky one.
Mm-hmm.
And she has been a great ally of World of Wonder since then. She's really amazing. And they do manage to keep everybody sort of their love and you know they keep their family.
They're like sticky rice. Once you start getting in, you're in the Katamari Damacy ball.
And when you did decide to move to LA, did you find the initial transition jarring?
They do say it takes 3 years before LA feels like home.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. You feel a little displaced, and there's a weird thing because there is no center to LA. There's no
You need to know where you're going.
yeah. And you know, in the days when it was just Thomas Guides, like it was like I don't know if anyone out there remembers Thomas Guides. They were like 800 pages. It was an 800-page map that was out of order.
It would make no sense.
You would start and you would be following it and say, now go to page 703, and from 703 you go back to 302, and then
We would have to pull over to the side of the road, flip the page, figure out where the hell we are.
I would still be lost on my way. Yeah, I need GPS.
I still get lost in LA. Every time I go in, I got lost finding today. There was no way. I'm just always with.
Well, at least you're good looking.
There you go. But it was a hard transition, and I came out here with the idea that I wasn't going to try and replicate what I did in New York, in LA, because I think a lot of people had a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, James St. James, you know, he escaped from New York, and now he's here, and so I didn't want anyone to ever think that I was coming for the club scene or anything.
Sure,
so I've sort of laid back. I the first couple of years I didn't go out that much, and it was a conscious decision to approach it differently.
But in that time, you really cultivated other things that have at this point now really flourished.
Yeah.
You know, you've re-identified yourself, and you've brought something else that you can share, which is still just as compelling and viable, just in a different way.
Yeah.
Well, I believe in my heart of hearts that every 5 years you have to completely reinvent yourself.
Oh.
That every 5 years there has to be something else that is giving you bliss and giving you joy, and if otherwise you get stagnant. And so it's hard, and the older you get, the harder it gets. But you know, and so that's why I had done Freak Show, the book, and then I was working at World of Wonder, and that's when I started doing Transformations, and now Transformations was 5 years, and that's when the movie Freak Show came out. So like I have to keep constantly, there has to be another goal out there. You have to always have something to look forward to and to keep striving for.
The trilogy now?
The trilogy.
The book?
Yeah, now
unfortunately
start the next trilogy.
It is such a hard time to get published right now. The publishing industry has gotten more conservative, and such a weird story. My literary agent disappeared, and he this is so weird. This guy, he was my editor for Freak Show, and then he started his own literary agency, and it was B.D. Wong and me and RuPaul and Janice Dickinson. He had a whole roster of people that he'd worked with editing books and stuff that he brought over, and for the first year we were pitching things. He's in New York and everything, and we were talking a couple times a week, and then all of a sudden the phone calls just stopped, and the emails would come back and unanswered, and then the phone went dead, and then his website went dead, and all of a sudden it's like 2-3 years later, nobody's heard anything from him.
Yeah.
I'm reaching out to Janice and BD and everybody. They haven't heard anything from him. About 5 years have passed. I still don't have an agent. But another agent who had an agency who did Harry Potter's books started an investigation to find out what happened to this guy. And people were saying that they heard he was dead. Well, it comes to find out, this is what I remember about him, is that he got into this weird S&M scene, and he had a history with meth. This was like 10 years ago, and we were all thinking, did he fall into some weird meth thing? Is he maybe in a dungeon somewhere?
Still tied up.
Is he tied up?
Is he the Gimp?
Who knows? And so then someone else said that they saw him in Soho, and that he was a homeless person, and he was talking to himself, and he was crazy. And so And then that was so somebody said on Facebook that they saw him, and that's the last anyone has ever heard. So
oh my
God.
Sasquatch.
I know. So I don't have an agent because my agent disappeared.
Well, the sordid underbelly of the publishing industry, is really an overlooked.
True. It's true.
This is the book.
Yeah, no, right. This is maybe the beginning of the next trilogy.
Yes.
When you started writing, you were writing for zines and other publications. Can you talk a little bit about when you first got into that?
In New York, back in the 80s, I wrote for Project X, which was a Club Kid news magazine, and also like every little bar rag, every little. I just for free. I just did it to like sort of hone my voice. I always tell people to do that. Just, when you first start out, just write for free. Anyone who will have you, any writing is, and you get feedback from people, and people would say that was great, and other people would say that was awful. And, I remember Stephen Saban, in fact, the first time I wrote something, he came up to me, he said that I was really impressed, I was really proud, and that made everything to me. And then I wrote something else, and he came up to me and said, that was shit, that was terrible. And so, I realized that, it was, it was conditional what I was writing.
You're only good as your last period.
Exactly. But so I did that for almost, and then I wrote for Outweek, which was like $40 or something. It just was nothing. So I did that for almost 10 years before Disco Bloodbath came along. So by the time something happened and I felt like I could write long form, I had a voice already, and so it was easier for me to do. And I had also taken a year off from clubbing, and I went to Miami to get off cocaine. I moved to Miami.
That's perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
That didn't really work out, but it did. I did spend about 9 months there, just writing every night and sort of seeing if I could write long form. So I had that. I have like 5 books that haven't been published in my computer. So
listen, this is great because when you connect with someone, they will be all ready to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Or when I die, there'll be a cache of
collector's items.
Yeah, which will go for a pretty penny because of the excitement afterwards.
There you go.
Yeah.
So maybe in the afterlife, I will come back and haunt the publishers.
You're going to be that spot in someone's apartment.
To go back a little further back, your fascination with Warhol helped to propel you into the life that you had. And an interesting aspect of that is that the Club Kid era is an era that a lot of people look at like the factory. But you say something either in an interview or in your book about how things look so glamorous that are from the past. And I was wondering if you'd want to talk about Warhol and that a little bit more.
Well, the thing about, because when I was a teenager, I remember I found A to B, I think, or
Popism?
I did Popism, and then the Edie book came out right after that, and then there was Warhol A to B or something like that.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And the philosophy of Andy Warhol, I guess, is what it was. And I had all 3 of those things when I was like 14 or 15 years old. And I was in Saginaw, Michigan, and it opened my eyes that there was my tribe out there, that there were people like me, and I would see Joe D'Alessandro and Holly Woodlawn and Candy Darling and Edie Sedgwick and all these, the superstars, and that's what I wanted to be, and I wanted to come to New York and be a part of the factory scene. And of course, the factory scene wasn't really the same thing by the time I got there. I did get to go to the factory a couple times, meet Warhol, and that was always a thrill for me. But the thing that I realized years later was that the Warhol scene, the factory scene, was just, if I would time travel back, it would be a nightmare. It was a bunch of speed freaks, spinning out of control. They would be annoying as fuck. People have a tendency to mythologize and glamorize the past scenes, and whether or not they deserve it, like to me, the Club Kid scene, it was fun. I was there, and I love all those people, but there was nothing glamorous about it.
Sure.
I remember that Fran Lebowitz one time said that glamour is anything that is older than you. It's the generation before you. She said, Brad Pitt is a twink. Cary Grant is glamorous to me.
Sure.
There's no way that she could ever think of Brad Pitt as being glamorous or Angelina Jolie because they were younger than her. And so for me, it's that same thing. Like, these are all cute kids running. Amanda Lepore is adorable. She's
precious.
But but she's not glamorous to me because we're the same age. We're of the same scene. So I don't understand when people are mythologizing. I guess I had a hand in it, but I don't see it as a
Sure.
To me, like I said, the Warhol scene in Studio 54 and all that is glamorous.
Yeah, sure.
But it probably wasn't very glamorous to the people who, like Bianca Jagger doesn't sit back and think about how glamorous Studio 54 was.
You don't think of it in that moment. Like sometimes, we get involved because we live pretty rarefied lives. We're pretty blessed to have pretty extraordinary experiences with other extraordinary people as a collective. But in the moment, I'm just like, this is so fun. It's like, so I don't go, oh my God, people are going to talk about this.
Yes.
It's like high school. I don't go, gosh, these are the good old days. In
Also,
the moment.
When people do that, you're immediately suspicious of them. And as you should be, actually. Yeah.
To me, the scene that was right before us, the area scene and every Diane Brill will always be the most glamorous woman on the face of the earth. And even now, we're friends and I talk to her, but I still get a little nervous when she emails me or texts me or like, oh my God, Diane!
Isn't that funny? That's adorable.
It is.
That's
It's sweet to still maintain that excitement, because also I think the lesson from that too is that you just have to propel yourself into the life that you want using those images that you have of those other scenes as your sort of guideposts.
Right.
Because that's really what it's for. It's inspiration.
Yeah.
When you were 14, 15, what was your life like then in your hometown and with your family?
It was a little schizophrenic because I was in Michigan for part of the time. My mother was in Michigan, and that was sort of as bleak and as depressing as you can imagine.
No good reason for you to be there.
No. And
but the culture there. Yeah,
right. The theater. That was a great art scene in Saginaw. But I had a lot of good friends, but I was also bullied a lot, and there was a lot of like I would just I knew that I wanted to get to New York at that certain point, and I had like a subscription to New York Magazine, and I would write down all the addresses of the places and the restaurants that I wanted to go, and I would just make lists.
Did you see it on TV though? Like, what was it? What did you see?
That's a great question, because what triggered it off? Because now the internet, you can get everything all the time.
Yeah.
What's the first thing?
Yeah, like people now know that Sunset and Vine, people don't get discovered in Los Angeles. You can create your media anywhere.
Yeah.
But you didn't have that back then. What did you see? What did you hear? Was there it's funny because there was a librarian in my high school and I would go and hide in the library during lunch hour, and she would bring me William S. Burroughs. She'd bring me Gertrude Stein. Okay. She'd bring me, the beat writer, Kerouac, and she would sort of like feed my mind into all these alternative scenes and things. And so I sort of, and like I said, and then I would, I had a subscription to New York Magazine, which is not anything, but I would drive 3 hours to get an interview magazine. And I remember seeing like John Sex and those, the people in the clubs and everything, and Mud Club and all of that. So I was able to really then also there was this, the break, and then in Fort Lauderdale, which was, still is the gay capital of the world.
And theater capital too. So we're talking about things.
But I would ride my bike. I would stuff my bed, shimmy down the drain pipe, ride my bike down A1A highway, and go to the Copa Club. And it was 81, 82, 83. And then they were still sort of 70s queens with the handlebar mustache and the Sergio Valente jeans and Paco Rabanne. And I remember I would watch them and I would think to myself, this isn't quite it. This is sort of where I'm going, but it doesn't seem right. And so I was a little trampy, a little whore.
And judgmental.
But I was able to say that, okay, I'm gay, but I'm not that kind of gay, and that I want to be more of this kind of gay. And I remember meeting some drag queens there. There was a woman named Puddin that I will always remember. That sort of like that opened my mind a little bit. And, okay, I'm not quite a drag queen, but this is another direction. And so it was all just a learning, and it was all just, I was just in a little cocoon waiting to get to New York. And by the time I got to New York, I was like, the first month there, I was like, okay, I know what I want to meet I'm meeting Anita Sarko and Diane Brill and Stephen Saban and Michael Musto.
You set yourself up for success is what you did. Yeah. You didn't just go in
willy-nilly,
not blindly. You had a strong agenda, but you also had a skill
And I was accused by a lot of people at the time of being a social climber, which I was.
Correct. Thank you.
But the thing is I was doing it out of love, and I was doing it because I really wanted to be friends with these people. I really wanted to be a part of their world.
Right.
And so people just saw me sort of like doing that, but it was out of just sheer, like, just, I needed I needed to make this my life. And
and you had many years to which to think about it and harness your approach.
And practice conversations, and I would have imaginary. I would go to the A&P, which was the only 24-hour place in Saginaw.
Is that grocery?
It was a grocery store, and I would pretend it was Studio 54, and I would like traipse up and down the frozen food aisle, and Liza, darling, and the Truman. Oh, it's so wonderful to see him, and have like these conversations with all these people that so that by the time I did meet Liza, and Truman, I felt right at home with
Are you
them.
talking about Truman Capote?
Yeah.
Can I do a quick sidebar?
Please. Yeah, if it's inspired by Truman Capote, then yes. Yeah.
Robert Morris did True.
Oh, right.
A weird thing happened. I was in New York. I was in the audience.
Yeah.
He was doing the one-man Truman Capote play.
Yeah.
He did the entire thing to me.
Wow.
And at the halftime, everybody asked, "Are you his granddaughter? Who are you?" And I got to interview him like in the last 10 years, I got to speak to him, and I said, "I don't know if you'll ever remember this, but it affected me." And he said, "I only ever did that a couple times in my entire life."
Wow.
I
He
know.
said
There was
something.
There was a psychic connection.
Just connected.
That's a fascinating. I've read the screenplay. I've never seen him do it in person.
He is unbelievable. I believe he did How to Succeed in Business.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And he was in Mad Men.
Mad Men.
That's the most recent, the last thing he did, really. He was
Unbelievable actor.
Okay.
Right, the older gentleman at the firm who never
That's
wore
right.
shoes.
Never wore
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But this is so interesting. So it wasn't like a hit list. You were really clear on your agenda.
Yes.
You were upfront about it. So it wasn't hidden at all.
Well, and also that's very in line with the Warhol thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they operated too.
Although Andy was a little freaked out by me too, because I did tend to fangirl on him.
Oh, okay.
He was the one that would really freak me out. There's a video of me somewhere on YouTube where I'm walking out of a party and Andy's walking in, and you just see me like my face drops, and I just get this wide-eyed look like, "Oh my God, he's here!"
Yeah.
But now people feel that way about you.
Yeah.
You've become the center. You created what you wanted to be.
I created what I had to be to survive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's always they say, become the person you needed as a child.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like what you always have to, like, if I could go back in time, I would have enough to tell him that it's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It really is. It's going to be a little bumpy. You're going to have to figure stuff out. It's not easy for everybody thinks that, oh, what a great life. It's so easy. You just breeze through.
Yeah.
Just remember that people who lead very colorful lives, the highs are super high and the lows are absolutely devastating.
Yeah.
There's no mid-level. We don't live in the middle level
Sure, right.
at all. We're on each side of the rainbow. The middle rainbow's for other people. That's not us, though.
It is. It doesn't get better. I always thought that seemed a little cliche, a little simplistic, but you are better at dealing with the highs and the lows as you get older.
And you were dealing with a lot of trauma, essentially, when you moved to LA, right? How long did that take to get over that trauma? And also at the same time, were you adjusting your drug intake, or what was going on?
Am I over the trauma? I don't know. I think a lot of therapy is in writing, and you work through a lot of your demons, and that's what I was able to do. But I still think that perhaps I was at another psychic. Another weird story. At one time at DragCon, this psychic came up to me and she whispered in my ear. She said, "I love you. You still have a lot of unresolved issues that you need to work on." And she said, "I'm just going to leave you with that, but you might need to help get some to work with someone." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And obviously, I would not be me if I didn't have a number of issues. issues that
Sure.
always need dealing with.
I like to have a full pack back here, baggage.
I like to keep some spares just for friends in case they run out.
But did you have a list when you came to LA? Like when you came to New York, you had your list of people. Who was your list in LA that you were like, I need to meet this person? Or you were already famous by then?
I was already famous, but I did, it was getting back in touch with Randy and Fenton.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people that were out here. I don't know if Brian Rabin is somebody that I was always friends with and that I needed to, and he's been so influential in my life since then. He's always been such a great friend. God bless him. So I had a list of people, Annie Flanders was out here. Karen Finley was out here for a long time, and so there were people that it was nice to get back in touch with again and to sort of reaffirm friendships. But I didn't come out wanting to. There were no stars that I really wanted to meet at that point.
Was it more just Escape from New York?
It was Escape from New York. Yeah.
What was your other question? Something about drugs?
Oh,
yeah. Well, also, were you starting to adjust your drug intake when you moved here?
No, because unfortunately, the thing about New York is when I left, it was all heroin. It was China white heroin that everyone was doing. I managed not to do that. Thank God, I didn't fall into that trap. But then coming out here, the West Coast was all meth, oh my God, I went into a spiral because there's something in your 30s. I'm not advocating meth here, but
PSA.
but it does something to gay men, and you see this in LA all the time, where the sex is you have just this crazy weird sex, and you end up in these weird places with weird people, and
Sure.
that's something that just sort of like clicked with me, and I had a couple years that I just lost when I first got out here, so. I got a lot of weird writing done at the same time because I would.
You had a lot of time.
I would arrange my bookshelves for a day. I would pick lint out of the carpet for a day, and then I would write for a day, and then I would go to a sex club for a day.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like 4 days of just madness. But then I would come home and there'd be like 40 pages of something written there. Scribbles. And a lot of it was nuttiness and just madness, but there were some gems in there that I wouldn't have accessed otherwise.
Sure.
Sometimes there's some drug writing that is pretty genius that you don't like. Alcohol, when you're drunk, when you write on Coke, when you write on K, when you write on Crystal, everything is different.
Yeah.
And it takes I could do it because I've been doing it for a long time, but I don't suggest anyone else do this. But I was able to take those 40 pages and then when I was sober, distill it down to like 2 pages of really interesting stuff.
And this is also because you had all this experience writing anyway. It wasn't just like you took a drug and then started to write.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, and looking back on it, I don't like the fact that that's how I had to get to those thoughts. But it is what it is.
You could have, though. Like the best writing is the clean writing. You could have had inspiration if you had a warning label on all the drugs you had done. Which would have the biggest, boldest warning label?
Meth is the scary one. Coke is something that was very 80s that I did a lot of in the 80s, but it's psychologically addictive, but there's nothing, it's physically addictive. I never was into pills. I was never into, this whole oxy thing. I just don't understand. But the meth in the K are things that were sort of
troublesome.
Yeah.
What did you replace it with now?
Shopping and
that's our girl right there.
And working and Milano cookies, man.
Which flavor Milano? Just so we can send a gift pack.
I like the double milk chocolate.
Those are good. The ones that are dipped.
Yeah.
Those are solid choice.
See.
Well, when you mentioned also the thing with the relationship between meth and sex. Is it the disinhibition aspect of it?
Yes, because you very quickly go to a very weird place in your mind where, like the strange, like I can't tell you because I'm not ready to tell you.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know you well enough. Some of the weird things, some weird places you end up.
Yeah.
In alleyways with 4 nuns and a Doberman pincher, and it's all just it seems perfectly natural, and so
in that moment it just made sense.
Sure. Now, did you ever have issues with your sexuality prior to that in terms of inhibition or anything relating to that?
Well, for many years, the other drugs were inhibiting to me. I don't know if I said it right. Where like Coke, like you have Coke dick, or
does that mean your penis is sleeping?
Not working.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So like there's a lot of like for years I probably just didn't even have sex, and so that starts to eat away at you and change you. So then when you did meth and it went in the other direction, it just seemed like a whole new world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know that this is where what I
famine.
came here to talk about, but as long as we're here,
That's why I was vague on the reply as to what we were talking about.
How do you find your relationships now? Can you have a deep relationship, or are you still enclosed in your protective bubble?
I think that I'm in a bubble anyway, just with my life, that I haven't had a relationship in a couple of years. I'm working so much. I feel like because I'm not going out anymore, and I don't feel that there's anybody out there in the club scene for me. I don't think that's I don't think that that's where I need to find it.
No,
so
that your space, you have a different space.
yeah. So it is harder for me, and I do find that I come with a lot of baggage. I mean,
Who doesn't? Could you show me somebody who had a great childhood? Could you who has that?
Plus, you have all those gowns and everything. That's a lot of actual luggage. Yeah.
Exactly. But there's like if I don't want to date a fan, that's something that because there's that Marilyn Monroe quote about how they go to bed with Marilyn Monroe, but they wake up with Norma Jean.
Sure.
And that's not fair to anyone to do that to them. And also, if they don't know about Michael and the whole, then I have to have this whole conversation someday.
I know, but you've just given us a million reasons not to be with someone. You just need one to be with them. There's a lid for every pot.
It's true. And I will someday, but right now I'm laser focused on work and
because you're really crafting, you're really putting a lot out, you're producing a lot. You have a lot going on, and this is like such a great time for you.
Well, I also, my mother has been on a steady decline for the past 3 years.
Sorry to hear that.
And so my sister and I are taking care of her, and we're just this week getting her into an assisted living. Finally, it's been a really rough road. So I find that like I'm at work, then I'm with my mom, and then I'm sleeping, and then I'm at work, and then I'm with mom, and there doesn't seem to be any room for that yet.
Yeah.
And there will be, and I will come out of the cocoon and have a whole other club life or party life or drag life or something, but not
It'll be
right
a
now.
hospital life. You're going to meet a nurse with access to all sorts of drugs.
The Hott Hospital. Yeah. It's a new scene. Yeah.
Well,
That's book number 6 in your computer.
That'll complete the second trilogy.
But I also think that maybe at some point in my life I need to a drag queen or a club legend retirement home is what I'm thinking. I see so many club people who have been their whole life been paid under they don't have
a 401k.
They have no 401k.
Sure.
They don't even have Social Security because they've been working off the books their whole lives. So many bartenders, so many barbacks and everything, drag queens especially. And I think there's got to be like a home for club legends where there's going to be a communal dressing area, like a communal closet of all drag gowns, and a stage, and every night everyone will just get up and perform, and you just let in all the drag queens and performers and everybody come and stay there. I'm thinking maybe a bunch of what are the silver trailers? What are those called?
Streamliners?
Airstreams.
Hold on.
The Airstreams.
Hold on a second. They have that for the circus performers at Diggsville.
Oh, they do.
Okay.
Yeah,
and they
for
They have
old-
one for strippers as well. I think they have one for burlesque performers out near. But I'm thinking that's what we're just a bunch of Airstreams in a circle, and every night we put on shows, and that's maybe what my 80s are going to be, my 70s and 80s.
That'd be a pretty great third act.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And also, you could tie in Hott Hospital because you could have that on the same grounds. Therefore, people don't have to travel that far
You
to
need
get
a
the care they
young
need.
nurse to look out for everybody.
The staffing, that's a whole other situation. We're not, what kind of music do you like now?
I have terrible taste in music.
I know, that's why I asked the question.
I am top 40. I am Shawn Mendes. I am like
That's adorable.
Listen, the heart wants what the heart wants, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I don't have I used to, like in my teens and 20s, you would seek out all the new bands, everything like that. I don't know anyone anymore. Everyone always makes fun of me because Blake Jacobs, right? We go to lunch every day, and I am just turning up and singing along to Pink, and he's always saying that in your one woman show you're going to have a whole section dedicated to Pink. I don't like Pink, but somehow I always end up singing Pink songs.
Do you get any sort of relaxation when you write? Do you need calm music or music without words, instrumental, study music?
No, I'm basically silent. I am.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. I have some songs that will get me into the mood, but then once I'm writing, I'm just I'm alone with my thoughts. I can't have other distractions.
Are you a big note taker, or do you do a lot of drafts with your writing?
I do a lot of note taking. I have card boxes, index cards of like little phrases and words that when I do it, and I just have hundreds and hundreds of them. And then I have a very weird way of writing where it's I will plot out everything on a timeline on the bulletin board, every single scene that I think needs to happen, every single conversation, and then I do another an outline underneath, and I write out of order. And every day I just go up to the board and I say, well, today I feel like writing about this.
Oh, wow.
Because I find that if you start with, I was born, and you get through some really boring parts and
Sure.
It stops the process. So as long as you just keep on writing about what thrills you that day, you do it. And then I physically print it. You have to do 1,000 words a day.
Wow.
Because 1,000 words, if you do 1,000 words a day, in 60 days, you'll have 60,000 words, and that's a book. And it's easier to rewrite.
That is the most inspirational thing I've heard, James.
But it might be a piece of crap. It might not make any sense.
Yeah, but you did it.
But you have it out of your head.
Yeah, and then you can whittle it down to something else.
Yes, and rewriting is always easier than writing. And you take it, and then you say, well, this needs a connection here, and this doesn't make any sense at all. And maybe if I move this page over here, and then this, and then that, and all of a sudden there's a point where it was a piece of crap, and then all of a sudden you look at it and you say, holy shit, if I do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and it all starts coming together, and then you get goosebumps, and all of a sudden at some point, I remember in Freak Show, there was scenes that I didn't have planned, but all of a sudden the characters just started doing things on their own, and that's when you know that you've sort of tapped into the zeitgeist or whatever it is, the muse is coming through you, because all of a sudden everything will just start to make sense for you, and that's when it's just sort of glory time. That's just magic.
And that method also dissolves the typical obstacles of the blank page.
And like I said, it's 1,000 words a day. And even if it's, all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy over and over and over again.
In different shapes. And,
you've still written something.
Yeah.
And as long as you just get a few little nuggets out, then you print it up and you put it in the page. And then all of
I
it
think
just...
Craig and I had discussed before, if you set yourself up structurally, it liberates you to be creative.
Yeah, that's true. Imposing certain limitations actually frees you up.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. A lot of times, you have to just go for what it is that interests you that day, because there are some boring parts to the book, but then once everything else is clicking, then you can go back to the boring parts and you can say, well, this is how I'm going to do it to make it interesting.
Also, you can get stuck on something that's not necessarily boring, but you've been laboring at it, and finding the inspiration is difficult because you're just so sick of working on this one scene.
And if you think, oh my God, tomorrow I'm going to have to talk about my dog who died when I was 4. It's you build up walls, and you think by the time you get to that, you already are you've already fought so much against it that nothing's going to come out.
Right, and it's an energy drainer as well. Yeah. Now, you mentioned your current schedule and how it's a little lacking in terms of time for fun, but when you do have time for fun, what do you do for fun?
Pink.
Well, Pink, sure.
Shawn Mendes and a bag of Milanos. Because I'm also doing this radio show and World of Wonder with Fenton and Tom. And So we each have to bring 3 things every single week.
The 3 of you are hilarious together. I love watching it.
We do. Well,
You guys have fun.
We know each other, so
Yeah.
we know the buttons to push and
Yeah.
everything. But that takes a lot out of you, because every weekend I've got to see 2 movies and do marathon a Netflix series or something like that, and it so I don't really have a lot of time. That's why I haven't gone out. I don't think I've been. The last time I was at Precinct was 2 years ago.
Wow.
How is that even possible? How is that? I don't even know.
DragCon will be coming up, and that'll be in May 20, I think,
4th,
25th
yeah.
to the 26th. So, that's a huge thing in our lives.
Yeah. Oh,
For
yeah.
sure. It's
and
so
then
great.
and then DragCon in New York, and I think there might be some others in the making.
I believe so.
Yeah. And like I said, transformations keeps me. I enjoy that, because I get to meet all the girls that I would meet going out. That's my time.
Oh,
it's,
sure,
it's
yeah,
my
yeah.
time. I get to play with them. I get to dress up, and I get to have fun conversations.
Bring the party to you.
Exactly. So that is
Smart. Yeah.
That's my night clubbing now.
I'm always fascinated about how the financials work for clubs, especially with the very elaborate parties, because sometimes I see even something that's going on, like a Boulay Brothers event or a Vita down the street from here, and I look at who they have hosting and making special appearances, and then, and maybe it's no cover, and I have no idea how that's structured. Is it all just the booze sales?
I believe the booze does cover a lot.
Yeah, sometimes they get just there's a straight up performance fee or an appearance fee. Sometimes it's just showing up and walking around. Sometimes it's a performance. If there is there's a lot of different ways for this to work. If this one's a free one, there may be something.
Another gig, the bigger gig,
Correct.
a bigger payday that then it's like,
Correct.
I'll come and do
this one for free.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a lot of different ways.
Because I was also wondering about, in the heyday of Club Kids, how it would be structured. Even in your book, there's certain things where you're thinking about the money flowing through, and like, for instance, when Peter Gatien is, funding apartments and things like that. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's the alleged other things that maybe he was up to, but
he, they were making money hand over fist. It was frightening, the amount of money that they would be making. I mean, literally millions a night, probably, because he had 5 different clubs going in New York City at the same time, and they were all mega clubs, and most of them were charging $25-$30 at the door.
Sure.
Thousands of people a night, and then the booze sales and all of that, and they weren't paying. I mean, I got $100 a night to do the door, and and they would paying people, and they were just horrible. I remember at the World, and you would have to wait every single night to get paid till like 8 or 9 in the morning, while they were just in the other room doing coke and counting the money.
Yeah.
And you're not going to leave until you get paid.
And they would weed out some people, because some people wouldn't wait.
The less they have to pay.
Yeah. So they're all gone now. So they aren't going to come and
to
get
hell
me.
with them.
Yeah.
I got to mention my favorite quote in your book is that at one point you described yourself like Pia Zadora on a sugar rush. And I wanted to know if you had a favorite Pia Zadora film.
I don't, but there's a couple Pia Zadora songs that I still listen to.
Oh, yeah. Which ones? I'm a huge fan.
Huge fan.
What's the Jermaine Jackson one?
Oh, When the Rain Begins to Fall.
I was just watching that video the other day. That is
It's a classic.
so good.
Yeah, it's
and
so
then
good.
there's
Rock It Out?
No, it's a sad one about I used to think, baby, now God, that's horrible.
This is the one from The Lonely Lady?
No, it was from an album of hers. I used to think, baby. We can play it as we go out.
Yeah, we can close with the Pia number. We do like to do that.
She sometimes responds on Twitter to me, and I get you talk
You
about
get excited,
that. Yeah,
right?
I get excited with Pia Zadora.
I accosted her at the Hairspray 30th anniversary screening. I like to call it tackling when I see someone that I want to have on the show. And what was great is, everyone's on stage for that, and I'm like, we're in the same room as Pia Zadora. This is amazing. And I have one of her the satin tour jackets. I'll show you before you go. And just ran up to her and was like, would you be on the show? So at some point, she's going to be on the show, which I'm very excited about. And if you have a question for Ms. Zadora, I would love to pass it along.
Well, here's the thing, because I am a little conflicted about her, because she was a part of my childhood. I remember seeing her perform at the Copa in Fort Lauderdale.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then lining up at the Peaches, the record store, the next day to get a signed Lonely Lady or Butterfly. Well, I can't remember what it was. But then she also, tore down Pick Fair, and I don't know that we can ever forgive her for that.
That's right. So for those who don't know, Pick Fair was Mary Pickford's estate.
Yeah.
And then her and her husband at the time, Michelle Visage, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Billionaire, multimillionaire.
Who owned like every...
Who was married to Xavier Cugat?
That was Charo.
Charo, yeah.
But Pickfair was a legendary mansion here in Los Angeles, and all this Joan Crawfords and Mary Pickford and all this Gloria Swanson's, everybody partied at Pickfair, and then she bought it and razed it to the ground
and built a very modern structure.
And so if I ever met her, I would give her a big hug and tell her how much I love her, and then say, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that?"
You may need to have this as the co-host for the Pia Zadora.
Would you like to be the co-host?
Yes, you would. Yeah. I see that glint in your eye.
This is a magical moment, I have to say.
But she does look fantastic, too. She still looks exactly the same as she did 35 years ago.
Yeah, the Dorian picture.
And she's still doing shows in Vegas at Pia's place, which is at Sierra's, I think. Oh, yeah. She plays a couple times a week.
What?
Maybe road trip to Vegas, because that's when I've been planning on doing that for. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was on Celebrity Wife Swap. And she swaps with Cloris Leachman.
I remember that.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
You are a super fan. I love it.
So, any closing thoughts before we listen to the sweet sounds of Miss Pia Zadora?
I got to tell you, even though we've been friends for a long time, when I was looking you up, Craig and I discussed, because he read your book and everything, and just to see the humanity and the love behind it, because you're such a big, bold personality. But when you break it down, looking at all these things in your entire history, I think that was the one thing that really humanized you. Because sometimes people are just so big and so bright that
especially
you don't realize.
With the outre looks and that you would do and everything, and sort of the whole nature of almost the performance art that you did as a. What were we going to say?
Well, that's that sort of that Lee Bowery thing where he would always say that if you're going to frighten the horses, you have to sort of go out of your way to be like an auntie. You have to be like everybody's grandmother. You have to be super sweet. And if you're because if you're going to have this horrible, terrifying persona, that if you're going to have any longevity, people who are scary or distant or they don't make it. It's the good people who are around 40 years later.
No, sure, right. Like Alice Cooper, they talk about how he's like just a lovely guy, and then he gets on stage and he's the demon.
That's what Ozzy Osbourne, when you saw he was just a doddering old granny in real life, and then he's on stage biting bats' heads and stuff. But like the only way he was still around is because people know that he's not the scary person,
right? Because the true distant monsters, they just eventually people can't work with. Them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
As to what Devin was saying, one of the things that really came through, the overriding theme is the unconditional love that you have for your friends and family, and also trying to find the best in people.
Yeah. Well, that is,
That was really nice. I have a deeper appreciation for you. As much as I always adore you, because you always have my back. You always look after me. He really does, and I'm super thankful that we're friends.
Yeah, no, I love you.
Thank you.
And now I love you, and now I love you.
Yeah.
A lot of love in the room, and to make sure you all feel the love out there, we're going to close this episode with Pia Zadora's classic duet with Jermaine Jackson, "When the Rain Begins to Fall."
And you got to check out the video too, because it's the best 80s fashion, more 80s than anything you've ever seen.
And of course, it was the opening sequence of the film Voyage of the Rock Aliens, which, if you haven't seen,
that's a deep cut right there.
I even have the cassette of the band. Yeah. So it's a deep cut, but go and check it out. And also look up her video Rock It Out. It's a women in prison sort of thing. Yeah, it's great.
There's nothing wrong with that sentence.
Not at all. You can find it on the Videodrome Discotheque channel. Oddly enough.
I've got to find this other song too that I love so much.
Oh yeah, because we can close with that one too. While you're doing that, I'm going to grab my jacket so you can see it. We're going to close out with your favorite Pia number, right?
This is a great example of my horrible taste in music, but it's something that makes me cry every time. I love this song so much.
Well, you say horrible taste in music, but I love talking about people's what they call guilty pleasures, because really there's nothing to be guilty about, right?
No.
It's music. If it moves you, then wonderful. And if someone else doesn't like it, that's not for them. That's fine. But
I hope this will move every single person listening right now.
I wasn't referring to this song. I mean, this is an across-the-board classic for all generations.
This is James in tears.
But anyway, thanks so much for joining us, James.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Absolutely. And we'll certainly be in touch about the Pia Zadora episode.